Welcome back to Grim Rules. Star Wars. Either your favorite thing in the world or your least favorite thing in the world. And I'm not talking about the bad Star Wars. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Rey. I'm talking about the best generation of Star Wars. The prequel trilogy, baby. Woo! 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 Specifically, Phase 1 Clone Troopers. Why is it the best? Because it came out when I was a kid, aka the best time to be a kid. When you were a kid, not the best time. Specifically, I'm talking about the elite Phase 1 Clone Troopers that never changed their look, didn't go to the gross Phase 2 Clone Trooper visors, the Republic Commandos, baby. Boss, Fixer, Sev, Scorch. And why not mix this supposedly grimdark channel, even though this is video 2 and I've done 0 grimdark things, paint up the Star Wars Legion Republic Commandos, baby. These guys are surprisingly hard to come by unless you're like me and ordered it from a sketchy Italian website, which actually came through for only $30 US. I think it was only $10 shipping. I got the boys here, the squad, the fellas. So let's get these guys based up and get these guys primed up. Starting out our amazing squad of Republic Commandos, I'm actually starting with the base this time. Usually I save the base for the very end of my painting process, and I love these Geek Gaming Scenics, their base ready line, the Scrublands one to be specific. Usually I don't spend a lot of time on bases, but this time, with how much Republic Commando means to me, I actually want to spend a decent amount of time in getting these guys on a really cool looking base. And I had a lot of leftover cork, so I thought, let's just go all out. Let's go crazy style with these guys. It's pretty simple. All I do is get some Elmer's glue, classic style, and a really crappy brush that I have, and just kind of slather that all around. I got like 10 of these brushes for I think like $5-10 at Joann, so if you're looking for some cheap brushes, or you just go to the Dollar Tree. From there, you just dip it in the bag, shake it all around, and pull out your little war mans. One thing I wanted to do here, if you notice, I actually haven't even based or primed anything. I'm gonna save that for the very end. I want these guys to look like they were on Geonosis, which is where Republic Commando's action really starts. From here, I thought I was being clever, and I put some glue directly on the brush. All it did was pick up the existing sand. So if you do that, let it dry, or be like me and just be a lazy guy and glob on some more Elmer's glue. I also have a little pot of Grinds coffee pouches, the dip coffee. Don't ask why I have it, please. From there, I just have to repeat that 3 more times. And here you have it. We have 4 painted up Commandos. Now you might notice that I did not prime them white or give them a zenithal like I normally do. And I've had a recipe for painting white for, well, since I started painting, but I thought while we're experimenting with basing, why not go ahead and experiment with a new type of painting white? But first, we got to get those bases done. Now we're really getting into it with a little Catachan flesh from Citadel and an old makeup brush provided by my wonderful girlfriend. And from here, all I want to do is dry brush really softly on that Catachan flesh. I don't want to pick up any of the sand and whatnot that I've worked so hard to get on the bases. And you don't always need the nicest brush in the world. Sometimes an old Wet n Wild brush will do just the job for you. Like I said, I want it to look like we're on Geonosis, so I want to build up some oranges, reds, yellows, and I use Goblin Skin from Reaper here, which is a really, really cool orangey, fleshy color here, which looks really nice. And from here I make, I would say, a mistake. If I could go back and change it, I would. I jump into Uriel Yellow, which looks a little more yellow than I think Geonosis is. If I could go back, I'd probably avoid the yellow almost entirely and just stick with building up brighter and brighter oranges. I did go back here and try to cover that up with some more of that Catachan flesh, which I think looks decent. I don't know if it looks like Geonosis. Now we're getting into the main squeeze of things, the main event, actually painting up the Republic Commando. From here, I start with Celestial Gray from Citadel, one of my favorite paint colors. The reason I'm not starting with white is that I want to have room to build up to. If I start out with white, I have nowhere to really grow and get into for highlighting. So I always start with my white recipe is a gray. And in the fashion of trying new and exciting things, I thought, why not try stippling, which, as you can see, is literally just me stabbing the model over and over with the brush, constantly digging at it. And what that does, as you can see on the backpack specifically, it keeps a lot of those recesses dark. There's a lot of crevices and cracks and nooks and crannies that I want to keep black. And you can see how the helmet just comes to life with this. Those deep details stay black, and that's why I primed it black and didn't give it a zenithal. It looks really, really sharp. Another thing, we're finally going to add in some pure white, which my favorite pure white, Vampiric Mist from Reaper, but I don't just jump in and go straight to white. I want to slowly build up to pure white. It's really subtle, but it's going to pay off in the end to make these guys look really dynamic and give the white armor more than just a one note kind of white. You might be asking yourself, why don't I just dry brush on all this? One is control. I have control over where I'm putting everything more so than dry brushing. Another is texture. If you look at the old Republic Commando games, there's a lot of texture. Really, these are really grungy, dark, very period specific art style games, but something for Star Wars that's notably has a darker and just different art style that's really exciting, and I really wanted to capture that with these guys. And I think stippling, as you can see, it builds up a lot of cool grungy texture. I'm not really caring if there's some black speck still poking through. That's just grime and dirt from a battle. You know, I'm not worried about being perfect with it. It's a really fun way of building up a really interesting and unique model that you didn't have to really spend a lot of time on. I think, you know, I've spent about 20-30 minutes base coating each of these guys, and that progressively got faster. And there you have it, 4 base coated Republic Commandos. That's all they are Republic Commandos. We got to turn these guys into Delta Squad. As far as stippling goes, I mean, what a cool method to build up kind of interesting layers, and you don't have to worry about glazing and shadowing as much, and it kind of gives, like you can see on the computer back there, this texture that these Republic Commandos have because they're weathered in the war, and the game oozes that kind of gritty mid 2000s texture that all those games are, mid 2000s tone that all those games are going for. Let's turn these guys into Delta Squad. The first commando that we're going to be tackling is Boss, the character you play as in Republic Commando. I'm starting out with, I'm going to say it. I wasn't sure the first video. I am going to say it this video. My favorite paint, the Rogue Hobbies Signature Series line of paint, specifically the orange red. And as you can see, I'm keeping the tradition of just stippling on that color. You know, 1 or 2 coats is all I'm doing on these guys. In the reference pictures I was looking at, this paint is worn, chipped away, grungy, dirty. So I wanted to carry that through, and why not just keep stippling it on, not really caring about where it falls and where it hits. Here I probably should have maybe used a finer brush. I was trying to get in his shoulder up there, and it just didn't want to stick. And especially because now I switch to a finer brush right after. He has these 4 dots on his chest here, and I kind of miscounted it. I went a little off his chest in the last one. Oh well. And while I have this fine brush, and as you can see, I got a new brush. It's very nice. I'm gonna keep it in nice condition. Thank you much. I'm just kind of slowly gonna brush on the stripe that goes from the chin of his helmet all the way to the back, and stippling that would be hard, pointless. I could just go back, and I will, spoiler alert, go back with just white and stipple that back over to get some texture. But you can see I'm just taking some time to build up that line. From here, it looks like I might be making a mistake. I cleaned it up a little bit. His line on his helmet actually feathers out and gets wider near the back of his helmet, which It's a pretty cool look. Trying to keep up my efficiency since I had the color. I resisted the temptation of jumping right back into the stippling to get that texture back on. I hate seeing that clean line on his helmet, and while I was here I did some other fine details that I noticed on it while I had the paint on the brush. Trying to be more efficient in my painting. And as you can see, just going on the edges with a little bit of white. You can see my brush has very, very, very little white, and it's a very dry brush. I'm just getting the edges of that paint. And you know what? If some gets in the middle of the line, oh well, who cares? Not the end of the world. From here, we got some Banished Black from the Halo Flashpoint Army Painter line. I'm sure it's probably just the normal Fanatic series Army Painter Black, if you're curious. I like this black a lot. I think it goes on really nice. It's got a lot of room to build up from it, and I just get the tech suit. I assume that's what it's called. I think that's what it's called in Halo, so that's what I'm calling it here. Just getting all the fine details, all the little cracks and crevices, especially in his backpack here. It's a thankless job, really. You know, it's a lot of work, but someone's got to do it, and that's me. So from here, I make a huge mistake. I saw online if you mix oil paint and mineral spirits, if you just tap it in crevices, it should just fill out that whole crevice really nicely. I went to Joann's because they're going out of business. Rest in peace, Joann. And got inks and oils, and I grabbed the ink, and it just now, as I was recording, right before I sat down to record this, occurred to me what I did wrong. I actually mix the ink when I meant to mix the oil paint is what I should have done. But I actually learned that just using inks as like this fine line, it stays wet on the brush and dry on the brush a lot longer. So it's actually worked out not too bad. I had more control too to kind of go back and get my little fine lines in there, and it still flowed a little bit in the recesses. Just definitely probably would have been better if I used oil paint. And you know what? I just keep doing this. I didn't change it. For the rest of these guys, I'm doing it. And all I'm doing is just picking out the fine details and lining them, basically. From here, this is my favorite part. I know I probably have a lot of favorite parts in this. This is actually my favorite part, the visor. All I do is get in with a pure white and then this aethermatic blue contrast paint. And you can use any contrast paint or really thin out an acrylic paint with a lot of water and just lightly brush it on. And you can see it'll go in the recesses of it, keep it darker, almost like a wash. And it looks like that dang visor is glowing. It's awesome. It really pops on real life on the model, and I think the camera actually does a decent job of capturing that. From there, I just added some weathering to the gun, and now I am going to edge highlight all the little nooks and crannies. An idea that I definitely forgot to do on the other models, and looking at the final product, I'm definitely going to go back and edge highlight the other ones. It's something that's subtle, but when you see it in person, you can tell that this one's got a lot more contrast and a lot more interesting bits going on. And all I did was pick out some of the more raised highlighted areas. I didn't go back and do a ton of edge highlighting, just on some of the things I wanted to make sure pop, like that part sticking out of the backpack and some of the panels on his helmet and chest and arms and whatnot. Moving right along to our second Commando, and I would say probably most people's second favorite Commando. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's probably the overall second favorite behind Scorch, which is Sev. I'm using the awesome Mephiston Red from Citadel, and it's maybe a little too awesome. It's a little too bright, so I slimmed it down, made it a little darker with the Banished Black from Army Painter, just to kind of darken it up. He's got a nice dark, almost blood red on his suit. And once again, I'm just following the same exact kind of method I had before with Boss, which is just kind of stippling that on. Sev even more so than Boss. His reds are really just kind of splattered on and are really rough, really chipping away from the color. One thing I noticed when looking at references, I tried to reference the video games where I could, just by looking up images and seeing if people had, a full scope 3D model. And the patterns were a little different on everything. There was some toys. I think he was also in the animated show a couple times, the Clone Wars and maybe Rebels. In the video game, I think his face just has this splatter pattern on it, but I did see some references where it was more of a handprint. So I think it's just kind of depending on his appearance where you're going. I stuck with just the kind of general splatter on his face. Also, it's a little easier than trying to get a handprint on there. I think it might have stood out a little maybe too much, but that's something to keep in mind if you're painting up this guy. Repeating that process once again, just getting his tech suit, getting some contrast in there, the black parts of his suit, all the little edges where the black part of his suit sticks there. If you're used to painting Space Marines, I can't imagine it's probably that much different. From there, I once again use my ink and mineral spirits mix to kind of get in the nooks and crannies and try to give some deep edge highlighting. I want to avoid washes while doing these, which is why I'm kind of manually going through and trying to pick out parts that I want to make black, the recesses, and not just going back in with a wash. Specifically, I want more control over it, and also if I use a wash on just pure white armor, in the past I've noticed coffee staining, which is literally what it sounds like. It looks like there's coffee stains on his armor. With Sev, a nice little feature I noticed on his little sniper, the two little scopes actually glow blue, similar to his visor. So I thought, why not add that little detail? I usually don't spend a lot of time on guns. I think they take away and distract from the model unless they're a really interesting gun. But this time I thought, let's get a little wild. Moving on to Fixer here, I had to mix 3 different greens, including, of course, one of my favorite greens from the Rogue Hobbies. That's going to be a common theme, I think, on this channel. I really had a hard time mixing up this green. He's got a unique green. It's not too dark, not too light. It's not like an army green. It's not like a forest green. I don't even know how to describe the type of green that he has on him, but I spent a good 5-10 minutes just going back and forth, mixing greens, getting it where I wanted. I really love the end result. I think it looks like it's out of a video game. It's bright and vibrant, but it doesn't look pastel-y. It doesn't look neon-y. I think it's a really cool green, but holy moly, I went through and did it a lot of mixing. If you'll notice here, I'm actually not stippling. I'm using a fine brush and getting into those details. I'm applying 2 coats of this on this guy. And if you see, I'm not really caring though still about where a perfectly straight line. He's still got that grungy look. His paint is a lot more solid. Him and Scorch's paint is less chipped than Boss's and Sev's and less worn. It still has a worn look. So again, I'm just kind of freestyling it a little bit, just getting it in that general area, just embracing the imperfections and grunge that these Commandos have. Oh, check this out. This one slide, boom, it flicked. That ending flick went right to the perfect part of the backside of his helmet. I was pretty ecstatic. I felt like a genuine professional, like the LeBron James of painting or something. I don't know. I felt good. It's okay to feel good. I did notice I was almost done with him, getting ready to apply all my tech suit and lining, but I noticed his shoulder, he has asymmetrical shoulder pads. One of them's fully green, the other one is majority white, so that's something to pay attention to if you paint these guys up. These guys paint up incredibly fast, which I couldn't be more ecstatic about. You can see here, it's just a lot of stippling, being rough around the edges, and the results, I think, look really well. It's a really satisfying way to paint, and I'm just kind of, once again, tapping on some white, just to give it a little bit of chipped away texture. I don't want super fine lines anywhere. The Republic Commando game, if you have never played it, is a treat to play, especially if you're into shooters around that time period. It was one of the few games I actually spent the time to pretty much do everything I could. I unlocked all the behind the scenes extras that they had. I watched all the videos. I learned about what Foleying was, which is like recording the sound effects. That never even occurred to me that you would have to occur as a dumb little kid, that you would have to record sound effects. And it really made me fall in love with just the art of creating multimedia art, or movies or videos or anything. It's the process of it all. It's one of those things when you watch it, you get lost into it, but it's really enjoyable to pick out and understand how much work and how much time goes into everything. And that's really the first time I can remember I appreciated something as more than just surface level art. I saw all the moving parts, and as a little kid, as much as I could as a little kid appreciate it, I really did, which is why when I saw Star Wars Legion had these little commando guys, I knew I wanted to paint these guys up. I can mix my adult hobby of painting up little tiny miniature warmans with my kid hobby of playing Star Wars games. So I jumped on that opportunity. I know I'm not talking a lot about the minis here. Really, there's not a ton to talk about. Most of the techniques at this point we've seen. From here, I'm moving on to Scorch, and I'd love to hear in the comments which one of these guys you like the most. I don't want to bias you at all, but I'm gonna bias you a little bit. I think Scorch turned out the best. He's got the most color differential going on. He's got a little gray, dark gray on his suit here that I had fun painting up and painting on. If you have never played Star Wars Republic Commandos, I recommend checking it out. Even as an adult, it's a challenging game. It's a rewarding game. There's no, as far as I can remember, Jedi in the game or anything. It's gritty. It has a dark tonal shift. It's got interesting characters, as interesting as you could make for a game at that time. And it was definitely just something refreshing and different. So if you've never checked it out, check that out, man. I'm sure you can get it really cheap. I think it was re-released on PlayStation 5 and Xbox and Switch. I would definitely jump on it and check it out. It's one of the best, if not the best, maybe behind Battlefront, Star Wars games I've ever played. One of the things, Scorch, I would say, is probably the most popular Republic Commando, which is who we're painting up here. He was, I think, canonized. I can't remember which came first or how it worked. I know that all of Delta Squad was in the Clone Wars cartoon at one point, but then also Scorch appeared as an Imperial Commando in Rebels, I think, which I was ecstatic when I saw him. I was like, that is 100% Scorch. He's got the yellow and everything. He looked just like him. I think they even kept, as an Imperial Commando, the same look. So even, I could be wrong, correct me in the comments. I don't fact check around here. I just like to yap. But I remember I was really happy when they decided to fully canonize, as if it matters, the Republic Commandos, and more than just the video game, because Star Wars lore and what is canon and what is not is an entire mess and worth maybe a different conversation at another time. As we wrap up, Scorch here in my love letter to one of the games that made me really start to look at life as differently, as pretentious and as silly as that sound, it really did. I couldn't be happier with how these guys turned out. We're wrapping up these guys with just a little bit of a rimming of the base. That sounds so inappropriate. A rim paint job. And there you have it. One Delta Squad, completely built, no oil, no shading, no cheats, completely with all new techniques that I tried for the first time for a lot of that. I think the bases turned out great. I'm gonna have to figure out the whole ink lining thing. I think a little more, maybe my mineral spirits. They're actually technically just paint thinner. I don't know, maybe there's a special way I need to do it. You can let me know in the comments, but without further ado, let's get into a grand reveal. Let me know what you guys think. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave suggestions and comments down below, and like and subscribe when you have a chance. I've only been painting for about 8 months, so if you want to follow me on my painting journey, feel free to subscribe, like, and comment, and all that stupid baloney. Let me know what you guys want to see next, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching Grim Roll.